My only crime was being happy. That's all I did. I hate you.
Holy shit, Danny.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Market Down Podcast. My name is Saint Nick, joined this week by my elf James Shasanti, and we are back here once again. What else is there other than elf that could?
I'm co-Santa. Why are you Santa?
Because my name is literally Nick.
I don't know. This feels like a white supremacist thing, and I'm not for it.
It wasn't supposed to be, but anyway.
I just feel like we should have consulted before this. But it's fine.
Whatever. We're back here once again to review tonight's episode of AEW Dynamite. Obviously, we are in the holiday spirit as this is going to be the last Dynamite episode before Christmas. But we'll talk about all that later. Let's instead jump into the top of the show, which saw Swerve Strickland face off against Roosh in the Continental Classic Gold League. This was the final round for the Gold League. Everybody going tonight in this side of the bracket were facing off for in their final match. So Swerve versus Roosh. This was a big one for Swerve as he needed a win to get up to 12 points to tie Moxley for the time being. Roosh also needed a dub so he could stay alive as well. Both men ended up attacking each other's pre-existing injuries a lot. Swerve came in with a bad shoulder. Roosh came in with a bad left leg around his hamstring area.
And a bad attitude.
Well, that's just generally Roosh's vibe. And both men went at these two injuries early and often. Towards the end, we have Roosh actually being affected by this leg as he is unable to ascend to the top rope in a speedy enough manner, which allowed Swerve to end up dodging a senton, and then Swerve went up top and hit a 450 splash. However, Roosh was able to kick out of that, and then he kicked out at 1, which, considering the last couple of weeks we had been discussing his no-selling, again, I don't think it was a bad move, but perhaps not the right messenger. Anyway, he kicks out at 1, gets up and starts laying in chops. However, Swerve is able to fend him off and hit a brain buster followed by a house call. Swerve then climbs to the top rope, admires the crowd a little bit, hits a Swerve stomp, and gets the 1-2-3 for the win. This gets Swerve up to 12 points. Roosh is mathematically eliminated. And depending on what happened in the main event between Jon Moxley and Switchblade Jay White, James, we could possibly get a 3-way tie for the semifinal match in the Continental Classic Gold League. But just for this match for now, I really enjoyed this match. I like how both guys went after each other's pre-existing injuries. I thought that was really cool considering that this has been a grueling tournament, and I think going after injuries that you're coming into the match with really helps sell how tough this tournament is. And we saw a little bit in other matches, but I think this was the most prominent we've seen it out of all of them, and it's something I really liked and enjoyed.
Definitely in this league, because they made a really big deal about it in the blue league with Brian and his eye when Andrade went after it. But no, I love me some drama when it comes to these tournaments. I love that it's not a cut and dry thing. You know, would we get to a tie? What could happen? I love how that played out. These guys have been going through it. They've been wrestling every week, no break in between, sometimes twice a week. And they've been killing it. They've been killing it. Every single member of this tournament, every competitor in this tournament in both brackets have been giving us their A game. And it's been a blast to watch. It's been a lot of fun. My opinions about Roosh, they keep being solidified every week. A 1 count after a 450. I don't think he knows what his character is supposed to be. I don't think he recognizes that he's the heel. Like, that's a babyface thing to do, or a monster heel. And maybe he could be a monster heel, but he's not booked like it. So these little decisions don't really work in anybody's favor. I am glad. I know it's really petty to say, but I am really glad that Swerve, when he did pin him and get the 1-2-3 after the Swerve stomp, he had his arm up in the air like he was celebrating as he knew he got the pin.
Yeah.
He knew he won with that move. And you usually see that get kicked out of the arrogant heel thinking he's got it, and then the babyface kicks out of it. But that's not what happened here. So it was really cool to see Swerve get that moment, and it was really cool to see that moment happen on Roosh in particular. I think this was a good match to get the night going. I thought this was a good way to really build drama as we went into that main event with Moxley and White. But I don't necessarily know that it was either men's best match in the tournament, but it was far from the worst.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I thought the crowd was really behind this match from the jump. I think the crowd in general tonight was very good. They were into a lot of stuff, and that helped make this match a little bit better. It added a lot to the match. Like you said, it helped get the crowd going in general, which was great, and I think it helped set up for the rest of the night. Plus, you had this, looming air of drama over the rest of the show because you knew the main event was Switchblade versus Mox, and you knew that there was this possibility of the three-way tie at the end, and chaos could possibly ensue. Although it wasn't as chaotic as I thought it might have been. It would have been a lot funnier if there was like a little more chaos and they didn't know what to do, but they already had the tiebreakers built in, which was a little disappointing.
Hey, there has already been a lot of criticism headed towards AEW about the lack of clarity with this tournament.
Yep, some love you by us.
Yeah, if they put more in there because they failed to explain what could happen, I'm okay with it. I get what you're saying. Chaos would have been cool, but no, I think they needed to pretend like they knew what they were doing.
Yeah, that's fair. I just would have been fun. We hop into the chat here from Chris LeClaire. Hello, Chris. Good to see you again. What do you guys think of the new team of Julia Hart and Dark Sky Blue? And also Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you as well. James, I just found out about this being a full-fledged tag, or I guess a team. I don't know if they're tagging it, but a full-fledged team during the recap later in the show.
Yeah.
I guess, Sky Blue is now officially full-blown heel, and I don't know if she's in House of Black yet, but the two of them running together is intriguing.
Yeah, I don't know how permanent a pairing this will be. Just like I don't think the partnership of Thunder Rosa and Abaddon will be all that permanent. Welcome back, Thunder Rosa, by the way. But no, these two working together makes sense. They're both sort of rocking the spooky gimmick. I am disappointed because I have been a big advocate of seeing Julia Hart with Abaddon, but I'm just glad they're interacting in any capacity. So I'll take it. I'll take that. But I'm down for the team. Let's see how long it lasts. Let's see how successful they can be.
Danny in the chat, why is James wearing Shrek ears? For those of you on audio, I have on a Santa hat and my ugly sweater vest. And James, I assume, is it Grogu, not Shrek?
It is Yoda, or Grogu. Could be either or, depending. We're not ageist here at the Mark It Down podcast.
Yeah, it's that species of which we know not its name. So, but it looks good. Matches your shirt, kind of. Colorblind. Anyway,
but okay.
We now move on to a backstage promo from Chris Jericho. For those of you who have not heard, Kenny Omega is out indefinitely from AEW as he's been diagnosed with diverticulitis, which is no joke. For those of you who might remember, Brock Lesnar had that quite a few years back, and he said he's never really been the same after it, even though he somehow won a fucking UFC fight with it. But Jericho recapped that news and noted, obviously, that with Kenny out, they can't challenge for the AEW World Tag Team Championships at World's End. So while they're figuring out what they're trying to do, Jericho wishes Kenny a speedy recovery and says that everyone is pulling for him as a big Kenny chant erupts from the crowd. And then he says, when Kenny's ready to come back, he and the Golden Jets will be there waiting for him, and they can go after the tag titles again. And then he signs off with Kenny's signature, goodbye, mwah, good night, bang, which the entire crowd did, which I thought was a really nice touch. James, I know for you, this is pretty devastating news. You are one of, if not the biggest Kenny fan I know. And Yeah, this sucks for a lot of reasons, obviously, most of which is Kenny's health. This is not good, but, in the context of the show, it sucks we're not going to see Kenny wrestling for a while.
First and foremost, get well soon, cleaner. We got this in the meantime. This sucks. Kenny's career is secondary to his health, and both are God willing not going to be. No, Daniel Hernandez. I'm not sure who that is, but you are not the biggest Kenny fan we know.
Yeah.
I want Kenny to be okay first and foremost. I want him to be okay. I want him to recover from this, and I want it to not impact his overall health and life more than anything. His career, I hope he comes back as soon as possible. I hope he comes back rested and healthy, and sooner than later. Taking Kenny out of the equation, man, you got to feel bad for Ricky Starks. This guy cannot have a big match go unaltered or unchanged. It happened with Punk. It happened before. And the comment, the Golden Jets ended too soon. No, this is like the monkeyest of monkey paws. I wanted the Golden Jets to end so badly, but not this way. Not this way.
And they're not even ending. They're just on hiatus. So you're not even getting that.
I really hope they pivot. But regardless, I did think this was a lovely segment. There was no storyline to it. There was nothing crazy about it. It was Jericho informing the audience who might not know about Kenny's health condition. And it was a lovely, best wishes. So hopefully we get to see Kenny sooner than later. I know when it comes to diverticulitis, the recovery times vary from case to case. You could be gone, or you could be affected for a couple of weeks. You could be affected for a few months. So hopefully it's the former and not the latter. But again, first and foremost, just wishing Kenny Omega all the best.
Yeah, I thought they played this really well. Jericho pretty much just did a shoot promo where he was there, like just delivering the news and saying, Kenny's we got your back and everything. I thought that was a smart way to do it. No reason to have Big Bill and Ricky come in and attack him for whatever reason.
Yeah.
This is a serious thing. Hopefully it's not too serious, like you said, and he's able to come back or at least be healthy in a short amount of time. But I think it was smart just to let them play it straight. And the crowd was really behind Kenny, even though this was a backstage segment and the crowd was really behind Kenny, and you hear that. So
I think also we owe Kenny a big apology for our criticisms of his promo last week in the ring. The man was definitely not all there, as he was 100% suffering from the effects of the diverticulitis, and it was definitely affecting his ability to even function on that day last week. So, Kenny, that's our bad. We were a little critical. Just a little. I was less critical of you than anybody else in that promo.
I agreed with you. I kind of liked Kenny in that promo. But...
I thought he was I thought, I went back and rewatched it because I realized I was a little critical of Starks. And I wanted to make sure I wasn't being overly forgiving of Kenny. No, I thought Kenny did great in that promo, and I do think Ricky did better than I initially gave him credit for.
Yeah, I mean, Danny's saying it still sucked. We're not saying it wasn't. It was good. We're not saying that, but I think in retrospect, some of the guys did a little bit better than we initially said, except Jericho. We were dead on the money with him. He was bad.
Yep.
Well, in the meantime, Kenny, we hope you get better soon and you can get yourself healthy and right, and hopefully return to your passion of wrestling. But let's move on now to our next Continental Classic Gold League match, which saw Mark Briscoe face off against Jay Lethal. This match was pretty cool because we had two guys who, to borrow Michael Cole's line, know each other so well, and because they've been wrestling together for
decades,
20 years.
Yeah.
So this was two guys just going out there and doing a lot of counters to each other because
to see who was the biggest loser, really.
Yeah, pretty much. As neither of these men had points coming into this match.
This final match of the tournament for them.
Yes, you had a lot of counters. They both countered each other's elbow drops. You had counters to their finishers, including towards the end here where Lethal was able to counter the Froggy Bow with his getting his knees up, and then he went for the lethal injection, but Briscoe was able to counter that. However, Lethal then countered his counter and was able to actually hit a J Driller that Mark Briscoe kicked out of. Briscoe then got Lethal up a short while later for a J Driller of his own, but Lethal once again got out of it and went for another lethal injection. Briscoe again countered it, this time for the final time, as he got Lethal up on his shoulders and hit a motherfucking burning hammer. I cannot stress this enough. He hit a fucking burning hammer. That is the second time I've seen that in my life after the Brian Kendrick hit it in the Cruiserweight Classic. I think on Kota.
It was on Kota Ibushi. The difference is Kendrick didn't win that match.
That's true. Because right after Briscoe hit, again, a burning hammer, he got Lethal up for a J Driller and picked up the win, giving him a final tally of 3 points. And Lethal finished with a goose egg. So
called that one, didn't we?
Yeah. James, this match, like I said, was cool with all of these counters and everything. The burning hammer took it up a whole nother level. But like you said, we called this. Giving Mark Briscoe the win here was smart. And we think this now sets up for a Jay Lethal storyline where he was unable to win without Jeff Jarrett and the rest of the slapnuts around him anything in this tournament. And we suspect he will probably attempt to move away from them, maybe perhaps creating a feud with Jeff Jarrett as he shifts gears.
Is Karen Jarrett a slapnut? Does she have a different name?
I just refer to all of them collectively as the slapnuts. I mean, I know she came in after we named them, so I didn't really change it. So, like, we could change it to the Jarretts and the slapnuts, but...
Nah, I'm okay with her being a slapnut.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Whatever Jeff's into.
Oh God. I joked, but we called it. We knew exactly what this was going to be. Like, we said it a couple of weeks ago. We said it last week, and that's exactly how it played out. Mark Briscoe got to end the tournament with a win, thankfully, and Jay Lethal ended up with a whole lot of nothing. But hopefully this turns into a babyface turn for him where he gets to organically build some momentum. And I think both men, I really appreciated the handshake at the end of the match. Small detail that I don't know if I've been super aware of, but every match that Lethal has had in this tournament, as he's coming down the ring, coming down the ramp, he looks over his shoulder, disappointed that he doesn't have anyone with him. He didn't do that this time.
Yeah, I noticed that.
He didn't do that this time. And I think that was telling. I think that was he recognizes he doesn't need anyone. He needs to break free. So hopefully that happens very soon. And I hope that Mark is able to take this one win and also build some momentum off of it. So maybe that happens in Ring of Honor. Maybe that happens in AEW. I'm not entirely sure. But we love us some Mark Briscoe. I stand by what I've been saying. I think Mark being in this tournament might have done a little bit of harm to him, exposing him a little bit, because I feel like we've seen the same match from Mark every week. The only difference, I mean, granted, he had a friggin' burning hammer this week, so that's a little bit different. But hey, this is the one he won. So... But overall, like, we saw that, like, diving to the outside elbow drop, like the Cactus Jack elbow drop, like pretty much every match. We saw multiple attempts at J Drillers. So I don't know. I don't want to nitpick because I am happy that Mark got this exposure, but he might have also been exposed in a negative way a little bit too. But time will tell because, hey, as you and I reviewed on Friday in our final battle reaction, that his match was one of the best matches of the night, that 6-man tag.
Yep.
So I love me some Mark, and I hope more good things for him and Lethal.
Yeah, and, Mark, has obviously, for the majority of his life, been a tag team wrestler, and it's only been in the last year and a half or so. It's only been about a year, where he's now become a singles wrestler. And it's an adjustment he has to make. And I think putting him in this tournament maybe exposed him a little bit, but perhaps also allowed him to get a few more reps as a singles wrestler. Yeah. And I'm sure he'll continue to train as one, maybe add some more moves and maneuvers to allow him to expand his moveset and, be able to put on varying matches as he continues to, go into singles competition. Yeah. So, they always say in wrestling, it's about reps. You need the reps.
Exactly.
And this got him, 6 straight weeks of singles match reps? Yep. So hopefully he's able to bank that, continue to put in work, and expand his repertoire.
Well put. Good argument.
All right, after this, we had a quick promo package for MJF being inducted into the National Jewish American Hall of Fame. Congratulations to him. Yep. We then came back from commercial with another quick Wardlow promo package. Spoiler alert, he's still mad at MJF. But this time saying that he'll be the one to bring the devil to his knees. And I only note this because he mentioned the devil. But we'll see. Speaking of the devil, Samoa Joe came down to the ring after this.
Samoa Joe!
And he's still looking for answers about the devil, saying he's been asking the right questions, but not to the right people. He questions why when other people end up getting stomped out, there's plenty of footage of it, whereas when MJF got attacked a couple of weeks ago, there was no footage, and all we saw was him lying down on the ground with a beer bottle broken around him. He mentions all of that, proceeding it saying that Roddy might not be the brightest light bulb on the Christmas tree, but he sometimes has a good idea, which I thought was a great line. Anyway, Joe calls MJF out, and obviously Max comes down, countering with the fact that Joe was supposed to protect him, which Joe obviously failed at, and Joe was also conveniently not attacked when the Devil's henchmen came around and surrounded the ring. So MJF says that he doesn't like Joe or trust Joe, and if he's not going to protect him, why should he wait until World's End to end him before getting in Joe's face and shoving him, trying to provoke a fight? The shove forces Joe to get right back into Max's face. However, they are interrupted by a bunch of obviously smaller masked minions sent by the Devil, who are very quickly cleared out by MJF and so.
Were they minions or were they goons or were they henchmen?
They're all synonyms. So. Yes,
I was going for a She-Hulk reference. You left me hanging on that one, but it's okay.
Sorry, it's one of the 2 Marvel TV shows I haven't caught up with yet.
You're missing out.
I know, I've heard, and I know I need to watch Miss Marvel before I watch the movie. So don't worry, I'm off next week. I have a lot of time to do nothing. Anyway, as these smaller goons are cleared out, the 4 larger main henchmen come in and surround the ring. And then the Devil appears on the screen, calling out MJF, asking, obviously via text because the Devil hasn't spoken yet, asking MJF where he can go or who he can trust before making a challenge to Max for the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championships. MJF tries to tell Samoa Joe that he knows that Joe's going to say no, but he promised his best friend in Adam Cole that he would defend these titles. And before MJF could even finish his sentence, Joe grabs the mic and accepts the challenge to the Devil. He turns to MJF and says that the best way to deal with the Devil is apparently getting with their fists before storming out of the ring, and then MJF quickly follows behind him. James, I like this, I guess. It set up more for something that happened a little bit later, which I thought was really, really good. But this ended up being good. Joe and MJF play off each other very well. And now we lay out a match for, I think it's now next week, for the Ring of Honor tag titles, where we, I guess, presumably will see either the henchmen fight or a Ring of Honor tag team that perhaps could be henchmen, but might not be, maybe as another red herring. I think this set up a lot of possibilities for next week.
I think so too. I'm a little weary. I'm a little hesitant because this feels like a retread of what happened a few weeks ago, where we were teased with a tag match of MJF and Samoa Joe versus the Henchmen, and then instead MJF got taken out backstage. So I want to be excited, but I will get excited when the bell actually rings. I doubt it would be a random Ring of Honor tag team. Why would the devil care? I do want to go address Eric's comment in the chat. Yes, the most coveted prize in wrestling, ... The ROH Tag Team Championships. Well, the devil can't really challenge for it because MJF is defending against Joe at the pay-per-view. So this is probably the devil's way of just wearing both of the men out and just continuing to play mind games with MJF.
Not to mention, if the devil's henchman, or whoever ends up in this match, takes those Ring of Honor tag titles away, it really is going to fuck with MJF and his psyche because he would have failed Adam Cole.
And it adds more gold to this probable group. Like, we don't know that they'll stay a group after the reveal. I'm going to assume so, but
I think it would be foolish for them not to. But...
yeah, so that's just more gold for the stable. So I'm all for it. I'm all for it. And yeah, I enjoyed this segment as well. Joe is just, I won't lie. I've given up on Joe a little bit over the last couple of years, just, and not through anything he's done wrong, just being older, getting a little bit bigger. I've been neglectful of how good Joe is. But man, this feud with MJF has really reinvigorated my love for him. So no notes. This is great.
Yeah, these guys, like I said, these guys play off each other really well. Joe having to be this friend to MJF, or at least this protector to MJF, has been a fun storyline as he attempts to protect his shot at the AEW World Championship. So I'm enjoying all of this, and you have the subtext with the devil behind it. It has been great. Eric is still attempting to argue about the Ring of Honor stuff, saying he'd rather the devil not mention the tag titles than to add this element. And I disagree.
But we also have to acknowledge we don't know who the devil is. There are lots of theories. There are lots of possibilities. This is one of the better kept mysteries in wrestling. But
maybe ever.
If this is potentially Adam Cole, this is a great way of screwing with MJF. If this is Britt Baker, this is a great way of screwing with MJF. So I got to disagree with you on this one, Eric. I do think the titles add, at the very least, they're being treated as a red herring. At the very most, they're a big clue and they're just doing more to hurt MJF. So I'm all for it. And then going on to your next comment, also, is it even a stable? There were 20 guys in the ring today. I think it's very clear that there are 5 people in this group, 4 henchmen and 1 devil, maybe another, but we'll get to that later. And then everybody else who bum rushed the ring that MJF and Samoa Joe took out were just goons, people who were just, I guess, hired by the devil to make this happen. It's similar to when the Dark Order first started, and there were some key members to the group, but then you had those crawlers, those like weird like servant people too.
Show creepers, I think, right?
Yeah. So I don't think it's that different. Eric asking, why would Adam Cole want his titles to be lost? I really hope it isn't him. Would make no sense. I mean, it's clear, like going back to All In when they won the titles, he didn't care about being the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions as much as he cared about winning the AEW World title. So maybe since All In, this has been the long game of screwing with Max. So I think this is one of those things that, quite frankly, you might be digging a little too deep for something that's a pretty surface level answer, but who knows?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure it is going to be Cole, but it is what it is. All right, let's move it along here. Next up, we had a backstage interview with the Best Friends. Renee recaps Orange's and Statlander's great recent weeks. Orange just defended his title against the bounty hunter. Was Keith Bryan, right?
Brian Keith.
Damn. All right, it was close.
It was Keith, Bryan.
Yes. Really like that dude. So I got introduced to him at Final Battle last week, and he's awesome. And Stat just came off a really big win, so she's excited for them. But Trent Beretta and Rocky Romero haven't really done anything recently, and asked what's in store for them in 2024. Rocky mentions that he's actually coming off a 230-plus day reign down in Mexico, so he just wants another opportunity at, quote, international gold, unquote. Orange is like, yeah, okay, sure, fine, I get it. We'll fight on Rampage, and offers up the international title match to Rocky, to which Stat and Trent are like, hey, that's great, you got the title match. And Rocky's like, I didn't want the title match. Why is everyone doing this? So it looks like we're getting Rocky versus Orange on Rampage, and I once again hope this isn't leading towards a best friends splitting, or at least Orange Cassidy splitting away from them. But
this tweet is funny. I've always wanted to meet Orange Cassidy, but now I'm scared to in case I accidentally challenge him for the international title. That was really good.
So, yeah, I'm really hoping this isn't the case, but in the short term, I think we're going to get a really good match out of these two guys because they can obviously both really go.
I'm hoping. I too do not want a best friend split up in any way. Mr. Penguin, sup, man? Welcome back to the chat. Always a pleasure to have you here, buddy. Thank you for stopping by. I obviously I'm on the same boat. I do not want a best friend split up in any shape, form, whatever. But I would be down for Orange Cassidy versus Trent Beretta. I would very much be down for that. I think that could be a good World's End match. And I mean, again, I don't want this group to split up, but you know me, I always want good things for Trent.
Yeah, me too. I love Trent. Big fan of his. And that could be a good match. Danny, what are your favorite juices? James, I don't really have any.
Cranberry juice. No ice. No ice. There's a whole story behind that, but I don't know if we have time.
What is it, your period?
All right, Leonardo DiCaprio. It's 2023. Talk about a different Scorsese movie.
I don't really think, because like everything I like is like lemonade, and it's not really juice, or like cider. Like I don't really like apple juice, but I like apple cider. So I like liquid fruit products, just not juices, more or less.
You like fruit punch?
No, not really.
Really?
It's not really, never really been my thing.
Interesting.
All right. Up next, after the best friends interview, we went to Saraya versus Riho. Winner getting a shot at the AEW Women's World Championship at World's End. We once again had timeless Toni Storm on commentary, and she came out with
the best facial expressions of the night.
Not only that, she came out with an absolute banger, saying hello to Taz and telling him, "I heard you're a landlord. I hear they call you the human duplex machine."
He really is. Tony, hello.
He didn't even fight it.
Darlings, back by popular demand.
You're my favorite broadcast colleague I've ever had.
And you are my favorite landlord. I hear they call you the human duplex machine.
That's me, yes. Something.
Beautiful. I don't think people praise Taz enough for how good he is behind the table. He has come so far over the years as a commentator, as a color guy, as a play-by-play guy. I think he's fantastic. And he knows when to not step on the wrestlers. He knows when to let them cook. And that was just a beautiful moment. That was fantastic.
I mean, obviously you have the Incepted Taz commentary part of Botchamania every month. It's one of my favorite segments of that channel because he's so fucking funny. He's always either breaking or making Excalibur or Shivani break, usually Excalibur. And he's just so good at it that I love listening to him. And tonight, Toni Storm's only goal was just to make everyone break. And she got all of them multiple times.
As Mr. Penguin said in the comments, best Toni Storm. I agree. This is Toni at like top form. Great stuff.
She was great. She even had later in the match, just so I could get to the match itself. Toni's going through, her, head up, tits out, and watch out for the shoe bit. And then Saraya is setting up for what I believe to be the last, whatever the Rampage is now called. And fucking Toni goes, "Speaking of tits, Saraya is about to win the match." And Shivani's like, "We're all done after this. We're all going to get fired."
Great stuff.
Gentlemen, we'll be back after this.
Side barricade. Aubrey Edwards to check.
Okay. So
I thought you were going to go to that, producer boy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was awkward. The match itself was good to enjoyable. I know it was a little divisive in our group chat as Danny and producer boy were not thrilled that Saraya took a clean loss in a kind of not whatever match, but a match with very little build, with very little stakes for Saraya. So,
Yeah.
and I would agree. I would agree that I feel like Saraya's her loftiness with the company isn't quite what it once was. Ever since All In, she's very much been on the back burner. I don't think it's quite the red flag that I think the others do. I agree. This was a little lazy. I could agree to that, but I don't necessarily think it's as egregious as everyone's been making it out to be. This is Riho's story. Riho is out for revenge against the Outcasts. She got her revenge against Ruby Soho last week. This week was Saraya, finally, months later, and she's gunning for Toni Storm and the AEW Women's Championship. So
the problem is they haven't really told that. Like last week, they mentioned the history briefly with Ruby and their match, but this week, look, I love Toni on commentary, but I don't. Maybe it's just taking away from their opportunity to.
That's true.
Like,
that's very possible.
Rio's going after the Outcasts, and then Toni could be like, "What are the Outcasts?" or whatever. But I mean, she doesn't even remember who Ruby is, who was also watching this match from backstage, by the way.
She and Saraya have broken up because
seemingly
of her budding romance with Cool Hand Ange.
Yeah, so they have time to tell that story, but they don't have time to mention the fact that Riho has just taken out both members of the Outcast and is now going for the former third one. So I think if they had built that a little more,
I agree. I don't think anyone
more out of that.
I don't think anyone is arguing that these women shouldn't be booked better. I wish they were getting more time. I wish they were being given better treatment. But to say the story isn't there isn't true either. It's being handled very poorly. It's being handled very lazily, but it was established last week. So I think if this was anyone else but Saraya, I would be a little more disappointed. But I don't care about Saraya all that much. So I'm just happy Riho got another win.
Yeah, me too. And I think, Chris brings up a good point in the chat saying Saraya wasn't going to win this match. And yeah, they've been setting up to Riho versus Toni Storm at World's End. I think that's been pretty obvious since Riho's return. I just would have liked a little bit more of a build other than, hey, Riho's back and we're throwing her in a title match. Because the subtext is there and the underlying, storyline is there. But I think that's something you should bring a little more into the forefront, especially building towards a pay-per-view title match. So, yeah, it's fine. I just wish we were getting a little more out of it. Obviously, Producer Boy just put it on the screen, but just to recap, after the match here, Toni was carried to the ring by Luther to confront Riho, and Toni pulled out some opera glasses so she could see her better. And this allowed Riho to go after Toni, getting her in between the ropes and hitting the Tiger Driver kick, I think it is, or whatever it is. And that knocked Toni all the way to the other side of the ring. And as Riho went to go stand over her, Mariah May appeared and blindsided Riho with Toni's title.
Decked her.
Absolutely laid her out. Mariah was all happy, like, look what I did for you, Toni. And Toni's like, who the fuck is this chick?
No, this is Toni.
Yeah, Toni did a very good job of getting across that facially that she didn't know who Mariah May was, which is funny because Mariah has been following her around for the last, 3 weeks. So we're already getting this underlying feeling that Toni doesn't give a shit about her biggest fan. So,
Yep.
Yeah. But, considering this was the only women's segment of the night, it was once again at 9:00. So that is a good thing. Would have liked a little more. I know
Progress.
we got the recap of the Sky Blue and Julia Hart stuff with Thunder Rosa and Abaddon, but it was a recap and it was 30 seconds. So give us more women's division, Tony Khan. You could have told this Riho story a little bit better if you even gave them another small segment so that we can do it, but it is what it is. All right, let us go now to the next segment. I don't even know how to describe this, but basically, as Tony was leaving, they went to Tony Schiavone, who was out in front of the announce desk with a microphone, and he was there to read a prepared statement from Christian Cage. Schiavone absolutely nailed this. He was hilarious. He literally prompted the crowd to boo at certain points by making some great, tactical pauses. But the main gist of this was that Christian will be returning to Collision on Friday to respond to Adam Copeland's challenge for what I believe was a no DQ match. It was one of those type of matches at World's End. So, but James, I thought Schiavone was great here, and they let him cook for a few minutes, and he was awesome.
And it starts out, Schiavone, you better read this statement word for word and put some effort into it. If you phone it in like you usually do, I will slap the yellow off your teeth on sight.
I genuinely love that this man had the full power to not read this, and he went for it, and it was beautiful. Schiavone has always been really good with the comedic timing. He has a great feel for what gets support for his character and to how to get a segment over, and he killed it here. He delivered. I wonder why we haven't seen Christian on Dynamite since that match. It's been 2 weeks now of no Christian.
He kind of explained it in the letter, but I was too busy laughing at Schiavone to write it all down.
No, but I mean, even legit, I don't understand why they haven't had him on TV.
Yeah,
I hope everything's okay, but it is a little bit of a bizarre choice as far as I'm concerned. But
yeah, I would have liked to follow up much sooner to what happened during that match. We haven't really heard from Christian. He literally stomped on, the back of Edge's neck onto the title. We haven't heard from Nick Wayne's mother, who cost Adam Copeland the TNT Championship. There's a lot of loose threads there. Yep. And
for a main event segment on Dynamite.
For a main event segment of Dynamite for a title.
Yeah.
And we have heard practically nothing until we now hear that Copeland has issued this challenge. I don't know if that was on Rampage or perhaps Collision last week, but it's been pretty quiet about this, and at least we got something with this letter, but I'm very surprised it's taken this long.
No, likewise. And say what you will about the match. I know we were all a little disappointed with the booking of that match and how it went. The feud has been fun. It has been a good feud, in my opinion. So a little let down with the treatment of it, but I'm excited for it to pick up again on Saturday.
Same here. All right. After that, we went backstage where we found MJF talking to Samoa Joe. MJF.
Say it right.
No, I have to do the rest of the show. I'm not blowing my voice out. MJF pretty much tells Joe that he's a shit security guy and he doesn't need his security. So bugger off, and MJF storms off. As he's walking, he finds a black mask reminiscent of one of the ones that the Devil's Henchmen use in front of the locker room of the Mogul Embassy. MJF decides to knock on the door. Prince Nana answers. He grabs Nana, puts him up against the wall, and starts questioning him. Over Swerve comes out, and MJF puts him down, and Swerve's like, you better watch how you handle my property. And then MJF does this.
Swerve. Garments. Okay, now I'm done, dude. You can talk. I'm just kidding. It's my turn. Shane Strickland.
I actually like you called him Shane Strickland. I forgot that was Swerve's name to begin with. But MJF and Swerve got into this great back and forth. They brought up their history together when they were used to ride together on the Indies. They insulted each other about how the other was just not on the same level as them. And eventually Swerve gets to the point where he reminds MJF that the last person who threatened him he ended up hanging from a chain off the side of the ring. Obviously, this referred to Hangman, and MJF used this mention of Hangman to get to his major point. Between Swerve's very public and what he calls begging for a shot at the AEW championship and his, quote, obsessive hatred of Hangman, Max thinks this gives Swerve a lot of motivation and adds a lot of circumstantial evidence to him being the devil. Obviously, whoever is the devil attempted to frame Hangman a couple of weeks ago when they attacked MJF. And then, obviously, Hangman was assaulted last week. So this would also allow Swerve, to use the Mogul Embassy to clear out everybody and then clear a path to MJF and the AEW World Championship. Swerve never really responded to that. Oh, actually, he did. Thank you, producer boy. I kind of missed this. He said, "I'm not the devil you're looking for, but if you keep waving that title in my face, I'll be the one to bring you to hell." And as he finished saying this, the door to the locker room opens up, and the entirety of the Mogul Embassy is in there waiting to pounce onto MJF. However, Samoa Joe, who really wasn't too far away, intervenes, saying that he and his associate, being MJF, have business elsewhere, and Swerve allows them to leave, telling them to go handle it. James, I thought this was a fantastic promo. That breakdown, I say this a lot, but that breakdown didn't give it justice. These two guys, obviously, I guess because of their history together, played off each other so well. They were both such smarmy dicks to each other. And I think this is a red herring again. I do not think Swerve is the devil. We pretty much ruled him out last week when the attack happened and he was still in the ring. But we are once again being given some breadcrumbs that perhaps he is. And while it kind of makes sense and the numbers kind of work, I think this is just to throw us off the scent of who the devil really is. And once again, really shows the smarts of the devil trying to make it so that everybody goes after everybody else except that.
Everybody's a suspect.
And no one's a suspect.
I am very much in the camp that Swerve is not the devil. I don't want Swerve to be the devil because I think this devil storyline is going to... I really do think the devil storyline is going to pay off, but I think Swerve's story is great on its own, that he doesn't need all the extra frills and bells and whistles. I think what he brings to the party is more than enough to get him to that world title. That said, yeah, I do appreciate the red herrings. I do appreciate the clues. I do appreciate the misdirects. And I do want to address a theory that I brought up in our group chat, that there is a possibility that there might be two devils. Some internet sleuths were able to deduce that last week when we saw the devil pop out of the car, the mask they were wearing was different, slightly different than the normal devil mask we see. So unless something happened to that original devil mask and they needed to replace it, there's a second devil mask, maybe indicating that, yes, there are two devils. I don't know if that necessarily brings Swerve back into the picture. Eric's comment, I think they're in a situation where they didn't know Swerve would pop off like this, so they have to somehow intertwine Swerve somehow. I think that's very true. And I'm going to bring this back to an old storyline, the old Attitude Era storyline. Who ran over Stone Cold Steve Austin with the car? Every main eventer was questioned when Austin came back. Everybody, people that had nothing to do with the story, were brought into it because that was the mystery. Who did it? You know? Who shot Mr. Burns on The Simpsons?
Who shot JR?
Who shot JR in Dallas? So I don't think Swerve... I think Eric is correct. I think bringing Swerve into this made all the sense in the world just because why not? And you get an opportunity to bring out two of the hottest acts in AEW to interact with one another. And man, do I think they killed it in that segment. I think they absolutely killed it. So I don't think there was any downside to this. And I don't think Eric was implying that, by the way. I'm just saying. I think this made so much sense. I think Swerve is going to turn out to be a red herring. I don't think anybody that's been this meticulous with how they plan these attacks would allow a mask to just be laying out outside their locker room like that. So yeah, I think this was great. I think it builds up a lot more of the mystery and a lot more of the suspense. And I just going back to Mr. Penguin's comment, it's going to be Jack Perry shaking his head. It very well could be that he's part of this. It very well could be that he's the devil. I know a lot of people aren't looking forward to that, but we are going to have to address the Jungle Boy in the room sooner than later. What?
I mean, you know my opinion. I still think it's Britt Baker, so I don't know if Jack in it, but
there are people, and I'm glad they addressed it too earlier. There are people, and I'm sorry if I just interrupted you, by the way.
No, it was good.
Yeah. There are people who think MJF might be the devil. So it's kind of cool to see that week by week, these theories are coming out, and AEW is addressing every single one of them. You mentioned the Wardlow promo before. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't by accident that he brought up the devil. You know? So much of this is being handled very well and is raising so many questions that while there are a lot of opportunities that they could mess this up, I, for some reason, have a lot of faith they're going to stick the landing on this. And I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, they've put too much time and energy into this to fuck it up. And, you know, back to your point about Swerve interacting with MJF here. Obviously, he's been interacting with a lot of the top guys that people think could be coming for the title after the match with Samoa Joe. Obviously, you had Hangman last week, and now you have Swerve this week. And Swerve has obviously been very vocal about wanting to be the first Black AEW World Champion and how much he wants to get this title. And recently, he's been hot enough where he can be positioned to be the next guy to win the title. So having them interact, even if it's just for this week, gives us a taste of what we want now so that it sets up for the future later on. We now know these two have a history together. We know they don't particularly like each other anymore. We know that they have really good chemistry on the mic, which is going to be very important heading into a major feud. So assuming that's what ends up happening and not, say, perhaps the devil ends up fucking over MJF and he loses the title beforehand. But I think that this was a brilliant play. Like you said, the only downside would have been if they were bad. And they clearly weren't. So and I don't think they were ever going to be. So this was all upside. You got these two together. You gave us a taste of the future. And you add another layer to this mystery with the devil and MJF. We also have Eric back in the chat here. He isn't the devil, but I think it's a Daniel Bryan situation.
I don't really understand that, which is why I brought the comment up. Maybe like the Daniel Bryan Planets Champion thing with Roman, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure of what he means there either. So sorry, dude. But yeah, he also mentions that he doesn't think we're going to get Swerve versus MJF until Swerve is champ.
Now, very possible.
Yeah, it could be, again, if MJF loses the title before he faces Swerve, we could get MJF challenging world champion Swerve, or Swerve takes the title off of him. I think those are your two best bets. But I think we're mostly in agreement here that Swerve is going to be champ very soon. Very, very soon. Oh, he's saying, okay, Eric means that Bryan was inserted into the main event of WrestleMania because he gained such massive popularity, even though there was already the plan. And yeah, I see what you're saying about Swerve. And I did do that. Could have been anybody at this situation. They have so much leeway to mesh around with this storyline as long as it makes sense within context, because there are so many people who hate MJF and so many people who want to challenge him because he has the title. So anybody who has had any smidgen of prior beef with MJF is a suspect or a red herring, and or a red herring, and can easily be inserted into the storyline for a week, have an interaction, perhaps even get their ass kicked by the Devil and the Goons, and we move on from there. So I think that's what's so brilliant about this storyline, not just the mystery, but everything that they're able to do around it. It really creates for a much bigger show. It makes everything feel interconnected, and it's just incredibly, incredibly well done.
I agree. Well put.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to our next match, which saw Roderick Strong face off against Komander. Komander were coming off a great match on Friday at Ring of Honor Final Battle. Unfortunately, he came up just short for the Ring of Honor Television Championship, but I was a little nervous that after seeing him in that match where he looked phenomenal, we were going to come to this match, James, and he was just going to get absolutely squashed by Roddy, especially considering the fact they had been mentioning that Roddy had basically been punking a bunch of younger guys in the locker room the last couple of weeks. But this wasn't that bad. Roddy did have advantage most of the match, but Komander had a great comeback at the end, including hitting a really nice moonsault to the outside, taking out Roddy, egging the Kingdom after the duo interfered by dragging Roddy away when Komander was going to hit his rope walk shooting star press. Then Komander was able to get Roddy back into the ring and attempted to go for that move again, but this time Roddy was able to recover, knock him off the ropes, and then hit that absolutely nasty end of Heartache, which was so crazy to the point, and Excalibur pointed this out, normally this is a backbreaker, and Komander over-rotated to the point where it became a lung blower. I don't know if that was an accident or Komander didn't know how to take the move or what it was supposed to be or what, but it was filthy, and it made the move look all the better.
I think we like to call that a happy accident.
Yes. It was kind of like when Randy Orton over-rotated one of the Bollywood boys onto the announce table. It was a little dangerous, but because it was okay, it looked really nasty, and we got a great gif out of it. So, happy accident. After the match, Renee Paquette, came down to the ring and asked Roderick what's with all the MJF as the devil signs that he and the Kingdom were handing out. Roddy, in his usual screaming self, says that after Hangman got attacked last week, MJF obviously has to be the devil, and Samoa Joe just absolutely has to see that. Renee counters with the fact that if Joe thought MJF was the devil, wouldn't he have looked into it more, especially today? But Roddy just yells at her again and says that Joe has to believe him because he's Joe's best friend by proxy. So a little more devil talk here, James, and a solid match, but yeah, whatever.
It definitely was a match.
Time slot.
How does it work? The best friend by proxy thing. Who's the connector there?
I don't know if it's supposed to be Cole or MJF.
But he doesn't like MJF anymore.
Well, yeah, that was the thing. Either it's Cole because Cole is like, dude, you to MJF, he's like, you should allow Samoa Joe to have your back. I've known him a long time. He's a good guy, or he's at least a man of his word. Or it's Roddy had convinced himself that he had to become MJF's best friend as well, and has just deluded himself into thinking he is. But I don't think that one makes sense because he also thinks MJF's the devil. So I'm guessing it's through Cole. But
and I'm okay if it doesn't make sense, but I am trying to make sense of it.
Yeah. Well, he's delusional.
Yeah.
So that's the only part that makes sense.
Fun match. That finish was great, and as I said, following Friday's Final Battle, I am back on the Komander train, and I am rooting for him. I'm happy he has a championship with AAA, and I hope...
Was he the Cruiserweight champ, I think it said?
I wouldn't be shocked. I'm not entirely sure, though.
Yeah, it was on one of the Cryons, but I didn't quite catch it as they were reading.
Yeah, I missed it as well. But I'm rooting for him, and I hope good things for 2024.
It's me too. He looked great. Like I said on Friday, he was absolutely awesome. And when you give him a chance to show what he can do, he is a great fucking wrestler. Hopping back in the chat here, Eric says that Roddy's got to change his song while he's playing this character. Mr. Penguin suggesting maybe something with an ambulance siren. which would be that'd be kind of funny. I think that would fit his character, considering he's always wearing the neck brace. A neck brace that the Kingdom was very quick to put on after his match once again.
Can I make a quick segue real quick?
Sure.
I watched Godzilla -1 last week, and it was very jarring to see Godzilla, tearing through Tokyo while Samoa Joe's music was playing in the background. Yeah, it was great. Don't disrespect me and say that wasn't great.
I didn't say anything.
No, it's what you didn't say said more than if you did say something. Your silence spoke volumes, and that hurt. Sorry. Also, I'm wrestling brain that when Godzilla theme started playing in Godzilla -1, my first thought was Samoa Joe.
It's not. Joe's theme is based off of the Godzilla theme. That's the point.
You can't prove that. You can't prove that Godzilla wasn't taking it from Joe.
I can, because the Godzilla theme has existed since like the 40s or 30s, and Joe has existed since the 2000s.
Are you saying he was born in the 2000s?
Well, I mean the character. I don't know.
Your whole argument is starting to fall apart here, buddy.
Because I don't know when Samoa Joe was born. Because was he born in the 40s?
Maybe he was. Maybe he was. Are you telling me that man's not a kaiju? Are you telling me that man couldn't take out a kaiju?
Oh, I never said that. I'm just saying Godzilla's theme that came first. Samoa Joe's 44. He was born in 79. Thank you, Producer Boy. Like
the son of Godzilla, Samoa Joe inherited the music from his father or mother. I don't want to genderize it.
Godzilla has 24 hours to respond, according to
All right, I had my fun. We can move on.
All right. We now head to the main event, which was the final match in the Continental Classic Gold League. I saw Jon Moxley go up against Switchblade Jay White. We had good old JR back for commentary for this main event, which was pretty cool. It was good to see JR back. He's been gone for a while, so I'm happy he was here. I thought he actually did a pretty solid job tonight.
I do too.
We also had the scenario here where Switchblade Jay White was in a must-win scenario, because a win for him would give him 12 points, tie him up with Moxley and Swerve, and with each holding a rock, paper, scissors win over each other, we would end up with the triple threat for the semifinals in Gold League. Now, Mox is already clinched, so he didn't necessarily need a win here. And obviously, if White loses, he would be out. Mox actually really jumped on Jay early, getting him in multiple submission moves and chokes. But right before commercial break, Moxley messed his knee up, and Switch just immediately attacked it, went after it throughout the match, to the point towards the end of the match, Moxley almost got counted out.
Rev, just let him play it.
AEW.
Yeah.
I just love AEW.
Yeah.
Just love.
There it goes. It's a JR when Jay White throws a chop. JR really loves Jay White. He really does.
I think that's why they brought him out. You got to remember, as bad as that run was, JR did have a run with New Japan.
Yep.
And he did call, I believe, some of Jay White's matches in New Japan. So I think knowing and having a history with him and liking that style really brought out the best in JR.
Yeah, he used to do the dubs, right, for New Japan, and then it would air it like late on Access TV. I think. Yeah. I used to catch him sometimes like 3 a.m, and I was like, I know what happens here, but I'm gonna watch because Okada's fighting. Anyway, as Moxley was able to barely beat that count, Switchblade got Mox up for a Blade Runner, and Moxley was actually able to very nicely counter and transition into a paradigm shift that Jay White kicked out of. It was really, really nice counter. We then went a few more minutes, and right as the 15-minute mark was announced, Mox attempted a Death Rider, but White is able to get out of it, probably at the behest of Mox's bad knee. And then White turns around, gets Mox in for a Blade Runner, hits it, and ends up winning, giving him the 12 points and setting up the 3-way tie at the top of Gold League. After the match, Swerve came out to stare everybody down at the top of the ramp, and Switch mocked Nana's dance absolutely beautifully. And then as Moxley was attempting to stand, Switch kicked the back of Moxley's knee out and forced him back down to his knees. So we now have this triple threat, James, with a clearly injured Moxley, Swerve, whose shoulder isn't 100%. And honestly, it kind of looks like Jay White's the healthiest guy going into this triple threat semifinal.
He has just as much momentum as Swerve does right now. And he has a bone to pick with Swerve after Swerve picked up the win over Jay White in their tournament match.
And Swerve has a bone to pick with Mox because Mox cheated to get a win over him.
Exactly. So I'm very excited for this triple threat next week. I don't want, if this tournament continues in the future, I don't always want this scenario to play out, this three-way tie scenario. I do want to see clear, defined winners in some instances, but to establish this tournament, to establish that anything can happen mentality, I love this. I love this. I love this. I love this. I know there was a lot of fear. I know there was a lot of trepidation with this tournament, especially this side of the bracket, because Jay White just came off of a rather big loss to MJF at the pay-per-view. Swerve riding the biggest wave of momentum in his career, and Jon Moxley being Jon Moxley. How do you justify any of these guys losing multiple times or not making the finals in some shape or form? And I think they nailed it. I think all three of these guys are protected. I think no matter who takes the pin next week, unless it's some egregious style of booking that I don't think they would do, I think nobody is going to look bad next week either. I'm very excited for this matchup. I'm very excited for who could potentially win. Jay White, put a title on him. You know, I'm down for that. Make him be the first Triple Crown. Swerve, not somebody I really want to be saddled with these belts because I'd rather him go for the AEW stuff, but give him something. This is a big feather in his cap. And Jon Moxley, same thing. Jon Moxley is Jon Moxley. He's Big Match John. Sorry, Cena, but I think he's taking the name now. So maybe if you don't want to put another AEW world title on Moxley or another international title on Moxley, this is a good way to keep him busy. So I'm very down for this. I'm very excited to see who potentially they will be facing from the Blue League. Bravo for this booking. Bravo for this tournament. And bravo to getting me back into a tournament mindset, something that we were all complaining about with AEW. I did not feel that here. So good stuff.
Yeah, obviously a very different style of tournament, which
yes,
I think ended up helping. And this was a very well-booked tournament. I was a little surprised that they went with the three-way tie off the bat in the first year. To your point, it does establish that anything can happen, but I always felt like that's something like this was the first time and it's been, 8 years or whatever, as opposed to, the first time we did it, we had the three-way tie straight off the bat and we actually had the rules in place. It would have been cool if everyone just was like, in 8 years, what the fuck are the rules for this? We've never been in this situation before. So, and you could have gotten the, anything can happen stuff with a very random and crazy loss. I feel like we haven't gotten any of that yet. Could happen in Blue League. Obviously, we have a few more matches there, but this side of the bracket was very good. Obviously, I saw much more of it than Blue League. And I think this actually does set up quite nicely considering who was in this side of the bracket. Because you have these three men in Mox, Swerve, and Switchblade that are riding a lot of momentum, need to be protected to some varying levels of degree, but they do need to be protected. And now whatever you end up happening, there is going to be somebody who loses and doesn't take a pin, which I think is very smart. Who that ends up being, I don't know. But honestly, I think Moxley might end up taking the pin here or next week, just to, give a little prediction of what I think is going to happen. Because his knee's so fucked up after this match, I think that's going to be his downfall. And then whoever they want to advance to the finals, you can go from there. Personally, I think it might end up being Switch. I know that would be back-to-back pins against Mox, which would be a big deal. But I think that ends up being a big deal because I think Moxley can, A, take a pin and be fine. And B, I don't necessarily want Swerve going for these titles or having these titles. I think he's in a position where he, at the moment, might be a little too big for them. And having him lose, not get pinned, obviously, but lose, frees him up. You give him another short feud after this, and then maybe with Mox, and then he could go on and fight for the AEW World Championship. And I don't know who will be coming out of Blue League, but if you want to give Jay that Triple Crown title, I think he's a great candidate for it. He has experience in Ring of Honor. He has experience in New Japan. I was an AEW guy. He's been in all three companies. He has represented all three companies. And I could easily see him going to work New Japan dates, work Ring of Honor dates, work AEW dates. Jared called him a thoroughbred, and he truly is a workhorse. So I can see something of that scenario.
It's very possible. And genuinely, everything makes sense here.
Yep.
So I don't know. I will say I am in this instance inclined to agree with this comment from the chat from Eric. Mox pins Jay. I think so. I think Jon Moxley gets his revenge on Jay White and makes it to the finals of this tournament, and leading to what I will believe will be a BCC finals at World's End, where I think Bryan Danielson is going to win his league. I think he's going to win the Blue League. And I think we're going to get a New York rematch of Bryan Danielson versus Jon Moxley.
That could be cool. You set up a lot with Moxley's knee. So I think that even if he does win, that sets up a lot for the finals. I know it's tough. I don't hate that idea. It really depends on who comes out of Blue League, but I really don't hate any of the ideas right now. I just think, even though Chris in the chat says he thinks Swerve is winning, I just think they're going to keep Swerve away from this because they don't want to tie him up so that they can pull the trigger on him for the AEW World Championship.
I do agree.
Exactly when they want to. I think they tie up with these three other belts. It's going to be a lot.
I also think it's worth noting, too, that given the belts that are involved in this, the Ring of Honor World Championship, the New Japan Strong Championship, potentially a third belt, we'll find out next week on Dragon Ball Z. Wrestle Kingdom is right around the corner, January 4th, for New Japan Pro Wrestling. And Jon Moxley is booked for Wrestle Kingdom in a triple threat. He's wrestling Will Ospreay and Dave Finlay for what will be a rebranded championship for New Japan Pro Wrestling. The United States Championship, which Ospreay rebranded the UK Championship, is going under a new name. It will be the New Japan, or it's either the IWGP or the New Japan Pro Wrestling International Championship.
Because they couldn't use Intercontinental again because
they really didn't want to. They really didn't want to.
Well, they fucked that one up in the first place when they unified it with the IWGP Championship.
You're preaching to the choir here,
created that butterfly belt. But
so with Moxley going for a belt at Wrestle Kingdom, I don't think he'll be holding a belt going into Wrestle Kingdom, especially a New Japan belt.
Especially not three of them.
Yeah. Bryan will be facing Okada at Wrestle Kingdom. I can see Bryan, who has a win over Okada in America, losing to Okada in Japan and potentially losing the New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong Championship to Okada.
That would also make, unless he just challenges for the Strong Championship, I was going to say, that would make Okada Ring of Honor champ, and that
I don't think
that does a little something for me, but
I am 100% of the belief that these are going to be three separate championships.
Yeah, I think that's the most likely scenario.
Because they keep calling it a triple crown. You can't be a triple crown winner with only two belts.
Yeah, which is why making this a title at the end or a belt at the end has been very confusing for the winner.
It wouldn't have been if Eddie didn't put the Ring of Honor and the New Japan Strong belts.
Yeah.
If this was just for the new Continental Championship, weird because we have an international championship, and weird because you
can only defend it in North America.
It's so weird. But I digress.
I wish they would have just established the fact that, yeah, the prize is this belt, like they did with the Owen. The prize is this very nice, shiny belt. You don't defend it. It's just a prize you get, like a trophy.
I would have actually really appreciated this Triple Crown thing if it was next year's tournament. If it was the second tournament, we had already established what this was, and then you up the ante by saying this is going to be for the first Triple Crown championship in North America in however many years. I think that's a great way of continuing the tournament and upping the ante. But they did too much, I think, in this first one, and it was very confusing for a lot of the audience. Me being a part of that audience, and I'm a very confused boy.
Yeah, I don't particularly get it either, so...
But that said, I don't want to complain too much because I truly have been enjoying this tournament.
Yes, yeah,
I really have. So I don't want to make it too big a thing, but man, we are that much closer to the finals, and we really are still trying to figure this out.
Yeah, I think that's been the worst part of the tournament is just the lack of communication about some of the rules at certain points. So sorry, I don't understand necessarily what's going on, despite the fact that we're about to hit the semis, but. Well, I've been enjoying the wrestling, and I think that's all I really, really care about. And we'll figure out what, the actual belts at the end of it have to do with anything when we get there.
I agree.
We'll be figuring it out on the fly when we get home from World's End, hopefully. Hopefully. Otherwise, I'll be figuring it out on the fly here on the Market Down podcast. We'll see what happens.
Exactly.
But Eric, real quick before we wrap up, he thinks that there's going to be stakes every year. I imagine they'll figure out some sort of stakes.
I imagine. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I still think that they should have just got a title shot. I know you don't want to rip off the G1, but it makes a lot of sense.
They did enough of ripping it off anyway. I think the Continental Championship will be defended every. I think it'll be put into the pool every year.
That could also be cool, where you can kind of do almost like the Dynamite Diamond Ring, where there's just this tournament every year, and the winner just gets to hold it for the year, and they're automatically entered, assuming they're healthy.
I'd be down for that.
And/or don't have to relinquish it. So that could make a lot of sense as well. Also, where was my Toru Yano win? I didn't get a single Toru Yano-esque win in this whole thing. I don't know if we got one in Blue League.
Who would have been the Toru Yano? It would have been Mark Briscoe, right?
I guess.
Yeah.
We gotta get somebody with a huge.
Daniel Garcia will be going against Brody King. Maybe that'll be it.
That could be the upset. He had a really good promo with Daddy Magic the other day that they unfortunately only had online. But
didn't Garcia and Brody have a match a while back that Garcia randomly won? That was super weird.
I vaguely remember them having a match. I have no idea who won the match.
I'm going to look it up real quick before we go. I know we're leaving, but I am morbidly curious.
All right. I will filibuster by saying that was Dynamite. I really enjoyed this. Dynamite, James. Obviously, we had some really good wrestling, continuing with Gold League. We have another red herring here with the Devil, which I thought was great as we continue to build that storyline. The Swerve MJF interaction was great. And even the setup with the Samoa Joe and MJF promo before it was great. And Toni Storm continues to just, I don't even want to use the word entertain because she's just so good. She just continues to be perfect in both her character and on commentary. So I loved this Dynamite. Maybe it wasn't the best Dynamite, but it was good, and I don't have anything else to filibuster with. Did you find it?
I did. They did wrestle at on St. Patty's Day this year, and I'm fairly certain. I wasn't able to get the results, but I'm fairly certain that that Garcia won. So maybe he'll pull it off again.
That'd be cool. What do you think of this Dynamite?
I thought the Dynamite itself was fine. The wrestling was great, and looking at how quick we got through the show tonight, quick for us. I think it was a very wrestling heavy show, so we were able to enjoy it a little bit more. I enjoy. I'm glad that they really built up this last week to anything could happen, and anything did happen. We do have this 3-way tie, and I'm looking forward to this tournament being over, not because I didn't enjoy it, but just because I'm looking forward to what comes next.
Yeah, same. I think I'm looking forward to the end, which is a good thing. You know?
Yeah.
You want to see how things end, and hopefully it ends in a good way and with some clarity on what the fuck is going on. But I think we inch towards that. We inch towards World End. Obviously, the finals of that is at World's End. We get ever so closer to finding out who's the devil. Just another good entry into Dynamite as we gear up towards the pay-per-view at the end of the month, so which is in a week and a half. So
we're close. It's a week from Saturday. A week from Saturday.
Yep, there's only one more Dynamite next week, and
2 more, and 1 Collision.
Yep, unless they do it again on Friday.
Yeah, they probably will. God, they've
been running Rampage Collision doubleheaders on Friday, so which get no fucking views because they end up going against SmackDown for most of it. But it is what it is. Anyway, that is our show here this evening. Thank you so much for watching us here at the Market Down Podcast. If you enjoyed what you saw, give us a like. Please subscribe. We are back here every Wednesday to review AEW Dynamite. James does the Impact Zone on Thursdays. It's going to start really ramping up as they rebrand after TNA, and they have signed some great people recently. So be sure to go check that out. I don't know what's going on in the background of us right now. Yeah, check that out. We also will be live after pay-per-views. I don't know about World's End. We are all trying to go, so we'll see about that. We will let you know. But we also occasionally have shows after Raw too. So maybe Danny will do something. James, are we going to be here next week? Considering the holiday week, I don't know.
I'm down to be here, but it's let's say we're going to do our best.
Yeah, well, we shall see. And you know what? We'll keep you updated on all of that on our social media stuff. So if you are following along here on YouTube, you can check the description below. You will have links to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. You can follow us there. We make some good memes over on Instagram. We can, keep you informed of our holiday schedule as we get closer to it. And if we do end up at World's End, we'll try to provide you guys with some content from there as well. We're also now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other streaming platforms. I forgot the other one again. God damn it. Audio Mac. Thank you.
There you go.
I remembered it off the top of my head when producer boy yelled at me about it last week. So you can find us there if you want to listen to us back, or you didn't get a chance to listen to us here on YouTube. You can pop us on in the car over on one of the streaming platforms and enjoy your ride there. We're not on Audio Mac. What are we on then, producer boy? What'd you say it was last week? We're on everything else. Okay, well, so not Audio Mac. Sorry, everybody. All right, well, whatever. So that's it. I would like to wish everybody who celebrates a very Merry Christmas. Please enjoy your holidays. Enjoy your day off. If you don't celebrate Christmas, enjoy your Chinese food and the movies. I think last week I wish those of you who celebrate a happy belated Hanukkah, but I will wish everybody happy Hanukkah again. Happy Festivus.
For the rest of us.
That is on Saturday this year. I hope you had fun decorating your poles. And we will hopefully see you before New Year's, but if we don't, please have a safe and happy New Year to you and all of your families, and don't get too drunk. So for James Jasanti, my name is Santa Claus. Have a good night for everybody, and thank you so much for watching us here at the Market Down Podcast. Merry Christmas.